Hey everyone, I'm Buster Green, and I finally beat Control. Oh god, that was an experience. Alright, so if you guys don't know me, I review video games, and warning and spoilers ahead for this one, this is probably going to be one of the most negative reviews I ever do, since this was a game I forced myself to play through after receiving it for free, and having an abundance of free time to do nothing but play it. Please like and subscribe to my channel if you want to see more weird rants like this. I will occasionally go off on crazy rants like this. Anyway, so before we dive in, let me just describe to you the story of Control as I gathered from playing the game. So, Control. Control is about a kind of bitchy, old, physically unattractive 40-year-old lady named Jessie, who looks like a more hostile and more unattractive version of what my brain thinks Jodie Foster looked like in Silence of the Lambs. She has a really poorly conveyed backstory, but Jessie is looking for her brother, who disappeared when they were children, after he played with a magical slide projector that they found in a garbage dump near their home. A magical European janitor lets her into the Federal Bureau of Control, a weird, sinister, twisted version of the FBI that seems to focus on supernatural mumbo-jumbo type things. Anyway, she finds the director of this FBC is dead, and therefore she is immediately given the position of the new director, somehow. Then, she defeats a series of haunted everyday objects, slowly gaining godlike superpowers. And by defeating them, a few days later, she has basically become an unstoppable goddess of destruction that can do everything that Mewtwo from Pokemon can do. But she does not care about that. Meanwhile, there is an evil force called the Hiss that is turning random people inside the building into zombies. It's kind of not explained how this happened, but there are zombies in the building now, so she can shoot them in the head. Eventually, she finally finds her brother. Her brother is crazy. She might be crazy too. Throughout the whole game, Jessie is talking to herself like non-stop, and at a certain point they hint that she might be doing this because she has schizophrenia, or that the voice in her head wasn't actually her monologue, but was actually one of the evil Hiss ghosts talking to her in her own voice. So she wrecks up some more shit, and then her brother goes into a coma. And then she begrudgingly finally accepts her position as the godlike director of the Federal Bureau of Control. But she is also stuck inside the building forever because she can never fully defeat all the zombies inside because they keep respawning. And then there's a couple of minor post-game DLC missions that give you a sense of how boring and tedious her everyday life is after accepting this role and making this her full-time job. Now, that's basically what I soaked up from playing this game. Throughout the game, there are also several novels worth of supplemental reading material and video material that I did manage to painstakingly collect, but I only read the first couple of, and then I was like, fuck this, there's so much shit to go through. I feel like even though maybe it would have explained some more mysteries that I didn't quite understand, it probably would have taken me fucking 20 more days to read and watch all this supplemental shit. Quite frankly, I was hoping the game would just explain itself for what it is, but no, it kept doing this vague pseudo David Lynch shit where everything is just ambiguous and creepy, and everyone is mumbling at you, and you can't understand what they're saying, so you turn on the subtitles. But the subtitles aren't even readable. The game just ripped off Twin Peaks every chance it got, but did it in a much more frustrating and much more unsatisfying way. This game was such a fucking mixed bag. Look. I need to calm myself down a second and just... I'll say what I thought was positive about this game. Here is what I liked. Now, the gameplay itself was good. As I went through the game, I kept getting more and more superpowers, and I felt like a powerful, awesome boss bitch. I got the ability to fly, and I pretty much flew around the world for the rest of the game. And after I did that, the game took on this really dreamlike quality that I did actually appreciate. And there were also a few cool sequences against the haunted boss items that were honestly the most awesome and funnest parts of the game. Oh, and there was this really, really nice psychedelic chase scene through a hotel at the end of this game, which was kind of one of the best standout moments in the entire game. But, dear God, for all those few shining positive moments, overall, this game is a fucking steaming pile of crap. So, I want to say it took me about 60 hours to beat this game, and I am absolutely sure that I spent 30 of those 60 hours just being lost and confused and frustrated in an office building. 80% of this game takes place in a boring, monotonous-looking government office building. It is so fucking lame. All the rooms are fucking monotonous and look exactly the same. And there's so many fucking rooms. And they all have the same shit in them. They have like an old 70s Macintosh computer. They have like a copying machine. They have like these mail tubes from like the 40s. Like they all have too many repeated features. And they all look exactly the same. Making matters worse, even though you have a map to show you where you're going to help you get around, because this game is psychedelic in nature, the map is inaccurate. And when you go into certain rooms, the door will lock behind you, and you'll have no way of backtracking unless you can figure out a way to teleport, which can only be done in a special teleport room. Like, it leads to this horrible, horrible experience of just being lost in an office building for days. An extremely large, extremely boring office building where everything seems the same and most of the rooms are empty. Like, occasionally zombies will show up and shoot at you, but for the most part, you're just trudging through an office building. I fucking hated this office setting. Like, 80% of the game is a dull 1970s office building. Now, there is the Foundation DLC after you beat the game, which mixes things up slightly, putting you in, like, kind of a Grand Canyon. Except then, at the end, you're in another fucking office. And there are a few standout areas in the game where you're not in an office. You're maybe in a sewer or a rock quarry or an abyss. And very, very frequently, you get sucked into this incredibly lame David Lynch-style motel where you have to solve a stupid puzzle to get out of the hotel. Now, there are a few cool sequences set in the Astral Plane. The Astral Plane sequences reminded me of the game Astral Chain, because ironically enough, they depicted the Astral Plane in exactly the same way. But despite that one artistic break from the dull office settings, even those are visually monotonous because everything in the Astral Plane is just kind of black and white and gold all over. And then the characters. All the characters in this game are awful people. Horrible people. Aside from Jesse and the magic janitor, every other character you meet is just a fucking robot spouting exposition at you. There are a large number of side quests in the game where this lady and this janitor just want you to clean up mold. And that somehow manages to be both boring and disgusting at the same time. It becomes maddeningly difficult because, again, the map is inaccurate, so you can't find out where you're going. And then the game expects you to just spend 8 hours sitting around cleaning up mold. For literally no reason. And even the mold cleaning is unsatisfying because you can't clean up all the mold. Like, when they say clean up mold, what they actually want you to do is blow up these, like, shining mold bubbles on top of literally entire rooms that are covered in this sick, disgusting looking mold. And it's so unsatisfying. If you're gonna force me to clean up mold, at least let me actually clean up the fucking mold. Let me leave the room cleaner than when I got into it, not just like blowing up some fucking bubbles. Oh, and then on top of that, mushroom zombies show up in the mold. Batango. And for whatever reason, every boss in this game at first seems easy. But then every boss in this game has this stupid fucking overdrive mode that they go into when their health gets like 5% low. Like, I would many, many times be on the verge of killing this boss, or like all the bosses in the game, and literally just as I would be about to kill them, they would go into overdrive mode at the last possible second, and then they'd kill me. The only way I could get around that was either play the boss fights super, super safe, so I had enough health to tank through the overdrive mode, or somehow kill the bosses so fast that they would not go into overdrive mode properly. Like, all the boss fights in this game just plain sucked. They were just unfun and unfair, especially the really early ones, which were just as brutally hard as the other ones, but early in the game, you haven't really gotten the hang of things yet, and you don't really have any power-ups, so you're still too weak. And I don't know why, but this whole game reminded me of this really, really bad indie movie I watched this year called Bad CGI Sharks. In Bad CGI Sharks, there was this guy named Bernardo, who kept showing up and dropping exposition and breaking the fourth wall. And honestly, he was the most entertaining part of the movie and the main reason I kept watching it. Anyway, the reason I bring that up is in Control. For whatever reason, there's this scientist character in the game who literally looks exactly like Bernardo and keeps trying to explain what is going on in this game and how the haunted objects work. And he only shows up in film reels, but straight up, that was Bernardo. Anyway, so since this game came to me free on PS Plus, it also came with all the DLC included inside. And there were a couple of really, really hard post-game challenges, but unfortunately, they were just kind of there in the game when I discovered them. And I wasted a ton of time trying to beat them, not realizing they were post-game challenges, because I was too weak to actually beat them because they expect you to come back after you beat the game. But since I already wasted so much time trying to beat them when I wasn't actually powered up, when I actually beat the game and there wasn't really anything left to do, I wasn't actually inclined to go back for them, because I kind of knew that they sucked. Now, the sole exception to this was there was also a crossover mission with the game Alan Wake, because I guess this game was made by the same people. Now, that unlocked when I reached level 7 and the game thought I was worthy enough to beat it. But, you know, it was just more tedious office rooms, except this time they were dark and, you know, there was more bullshit David Lynch shit. And all I really got out of it was Alan Wake existed. He was a man. Jesse heard of him once. He was maybe a raider. He was maybe dead. I think he was murdered by a Wendigo or something. Either way, the quest where he was name dropped and you had to fight a Wendigo, which had to be killed by trapping it in a brightly lit room, was a little bit cool. But along the way, there was still too much time stuck in monotonous office rooms, which were now dark, making them even harder to navigate. And nothing in this game actually made me appreciate Alan Wake or want to play any of his games. Like, they just made Alan Wake sound like Ernest Hemingway dying of cancer on his deathbed. Like, the main and only reason I stuck with this game was because the gameplay was fun. And there would be the occasional fun surprise, but overall, the world was just too claustrophobic and horrible, and honestly, it was depressing. Like, the fact I spent literally days trapped and lost wandering around office cubicles was too real and too boring considering I'm trapped inside in a pandemic right now. Like, if this game had literally the same gameplay, but had been like a fantasy game about like a witch flying around like a fantastic little village in Germany, I would have said this was the game of the year. But instead, it's weird J.J. Abrams style David Lynch fake bullshit starring unattractive fake Jodie Foster Mewtwo. And I hate how fucking blasé she is about everything. Like, she literally gets godlike superpowers and an army of people working under her, and her reaction is, "But I don't want to be here. I'm sad." Like, the story is just so utterly unsatisfying. Like, just too much of it is told and not shown, and then even more stuff is just stuffed into the supplemental garbage material that I didn't want to spend 20 days reading through. The whole arc between Jessie and her bullshit brother is just so disappointing. It was just a MacGuffin to explain why she put up with all the bullshit the game is handing her in the beginning of the game. And then at the end of the game, he goes into a coma, and they never even talk. Like, there is no fucking closure for any of the storylines in this game. Control gets a fucking 2 out of 10. It's an utterly frustrating, poor, badly designed experience with great fucking gameplay and great fucking graphics, what are unfortunately set in an infinitely boring fucking office building that you can never fucking get out of and never fucking find anything in. And your ability to navigate is strictly based on dumb luck and memory because every fucking floor stretches for literally hundreds of miles, and your map will show like 4 floors overlaid on top of each other because they literally are! Do not play this game. It seems promising. It sets up a bunch of cool pseudo-mysteries, but they don't go anywhere. There's literally nothing redeeming about it, and no fucking payoff. I hate this game. I'm sad I played it. The end.